Ahoy there, and welcome back to Build with the Boys. We now have issue 73 of Hachette's Build Titanic. Now in these the next four that we're doing, we are adding all of the superstructure to the promenade deck. I'm not sure, I've not looked up that far ahead yet. I don't know if we connect the two decks together. Kind of hope we do, but I've got a feeling we don't. But it's largely rinse and repeat. We're doing a lot of windows on these, and we're adding a lot of what's essentially the rooms, the smoking room, the first class entrance, the cabins. They're all going on the promenade deck. So there's a lot of windows to do. So if you're not a fan of windows, this ain't your month. We've got a lot of windows to put in. We've got LEDs coming as well. We've got a lot. We've got a lot. So it'll be a good one. At the end of this one, we'll be having our Titanic talks as normal. And if you got a heart, I'm going to break it, because we've got an amazing story that it's a story of kind of star-crossed lovers, not Jack and Rose, but a fairly heartbreaking story, but a good one. So we'll if you tune in for that, we'll be there at the end. Let's get this open. Let's get this built, because this is my favourite time of the month, Titanic month. Let's get on with it. Okay, so let's take a look at what comes with issue 73. This one over. Okay. So this is the first class entrance and cabins. Now naturally this won't have a roof to it, because that will be the promenade deck. We have an LED strip as well, quite a long one. We have our wire. I don't think we use these in this one. I might be wrong. What's in here? That's the windows. I can feel that. Right, let's get that one open. Sure, this is windows. It definitely feels like it's got to be. If they're not, I just haven't got the windows. Yep, wow, that is a lot of tiny, tiny windows. Okay. We've got our partition walls here as well. And some screws. Okay, so that's what we've got. Let's have a look at what we're doing. This is going to be a fun one. So what we're going to be doing first is we're going to be using 4 of the large windows, these ones at the bottom, and we're going to fill in these 4 holes here, and then we're installing 17 windows. 17, yeah. Then we're doing 10, then we're doing another 17, and then we're doing 4 more. Wow, right, so oh my god. Right, so we're going to put the 4 in first. We'll take a look at what that looks like, then we're going to move on to the 17. Okay, so there's our first 4. Nice and easy, that's our 4 big ones. Now we're going to put 17 all the way along here. Okay, windows, windows, windows. Okay, so there's our first 17 into the little windows. You can see which one they go. The little windows go at the top. But there's our first 17 in there. We've got our big ones over here. It looks nice. I mean, this is what I can't deny. As much as kind of a ball like this is, it does look nice when it's done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put 10 in the back. Okay, so now here is our 10 on the back. Again, it looks, I mean, you can't deny it. It looks nice when it's done, but it's a grind, this. It is what it is. We're sticking in windows. We've got 17 windows to go in here, so we've got another 17. That's 30. That's our what? 44 little windows we're putting in total then, and 8 large windows. Wowzers. Right, let's get this done. Okay, so that's our next 17. Those are all in. Finally, the last 4 large windows to go in. Phew, so those are our last 4 large windows put in. So now we have all of the windows put into this one. As I said, we did 48 windows in total. It's a lot, but it looks nice, right? So let's move on. Okay, so bringing over our promenade deck, this is the section we're going to be working on. Now, it's easy identifiable because it's the section with the pattern floor. It's taking the part that we've made. This is the first class entrance and cabins. So this is going to sit over here. Now, fortunately, it's still malleable at this point, so you can still move it around so that you can wiggle it, get it into the position you need to go into, and then we're going to hold this in place with 10 of the AP screws. So that's how we're going to sit. This will all screw down to the base. We're going to go in from the top. So this is the first time we're doing this, rather than screwing from the bottom, screwing in from the top. So we need 10 AP screws to do that. So I'm going to load one up. We'll get one put in, then we'll put the rest in. Okay, so we've got an AP screw loaded. I'm going to hold this one down, find our spot, and in we go. You can hear from the turn on my screwdriver, the thread's gone. I need to get a new one. Okay, so that's one in. I'm going to go the opposite side, get one in this side. There we go. Now I've got another 8 of these to put in, so we're going to get that done, then we'll take a look. Okay, so that's now screwed in place. The next thing we need to go and do is we have these partition walls, which go into these holes here. Now, again, it says to glue it. I see no real reason to glue it. I think if this is a snug enough fit, by the time you've got a deck on top of here, it's never going to come out. So I think glue might be overkill. We'll see what the actual fit's like, though. If it's loose, then glue will, yeah. You don't need to glue this. There's no way you need to glue this. It's hard enough to get in as it is. It's that snug. I mean, the choice is yours. I mean, as I've said, I don't want my model caked in glue. So the choice is yours, but that is going nowhere. By the time the deck's on top as well, it's never going to happen. We have the other ones going on the other side, which is going to go in over there. But yeah, you don't need to glue these. You just don't. I mean, the choice is yours. Of course, the choice is yours. I mean, it's personal preference. As I said, I like to reduce the amount of glue I'm caking in this model. But when there's a deck on top of here, that ain't going to move. It's going to be impossible for that to come out. So there is no reason to glue that in. But the choice is yours. But that's what it looks like with the partition walls in there. And the next thing we do is going to flip this one over and we have an LED strip to install. Okay, so flipping our deck over. This is the underside of where we just worked. So you can see the staircase here. It's not the grand staircase. It's the first class staircase. What's going to happen is we're going to pop this one in here like so. So you can see this light here is going to light up that staircase quite lovely. But that's going to go into here. There we go. I'll move this one, slide this one right down. There we are. There we are. That one's in. Now, we're not wiring it in this one, so they don't ask us to wire it or test it yet, which is fine. I mean, you can if you want to. I mean, it's not, impossible to figure out how to do that. But you don't need to yet. I think once we've got them all in, then we'll test them, and if we have any issues, we'll address it. But that is all there is to do in stage 73. Let's have a chat. So that's that one done. It's laborious. I mean, 48 windows. Wow. But it looks good. I mean, ultimately, that's what we care about, right? So it's a laborious issue. But by contrast, we get the ones at the hull where it's 3 screws, whereas that's a lot to do. But it looks good. It's now mounted to the promenade deck. Looks nice. And it's going to look awesome. It's going to look awesome. With regards to glue, it's dealer's choice. It's kind of like what I say with the decking as well. If you want the glue on the decking, well, then you go for it. Glue it down. But for me personally, I don't see the need in using glue if you don't need to use it, right? So caking things in glue, it's not necessary. I cannot see anyway those bulkheads are going to come out. They just can't, because the deck's going to sit on top of it. There's no way. Once that's on you, you can't get them out. So why glue it? If it's firm, why glue it? And that's kind of my standpoint on it. But it's your choice. If you want to glue it, you go ahead and you glue. If you're just sticking around for the build instructions, thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like and subscribe. It helps our channel massively. And you can contact us at buildingtheboys@outlook.com. If you're sticking around for our Titanic talk, we are talking about the true lovers of the Titanic and not these two. Now, when I tell you this story, you'll probably be left thinking like I am. Why create those two characters when these two actually existed? Because I believe this is a better story than Jack and Rose. I do. Normally, at this point, I'd show you a picture of who I'm talking about, but there are no pictures of them. So, sadly, there are no pictures of the two people I'm talking about. And the people I'm talking about are Dennis Lennon and Mary Mullen. Where to begin? Well, Dennis was 20 years old in 1912. He had moved to Galway recently. So he moved to Galway in 1911, he moved to Galway. And he was working as a barman. And he was working in a bar owned by Delia Mullen. Delia Mullen was a widow with 6 children. She had 3 daughters, 3 sons. The sons were the eldest and the daughters were the youngest. And the daughters were sent to boarding school in Dublin, a convent, because the Mullins were, I wouldn't say wealthy, but they were certainly comfortable. So the Mullins owned 2 bars. They also owned a shop in Galway. So they were very comfortable. As an example of this, when the father died, he left an estate in 1901 worth £10,690. It doesn't sound like a lot in today's money, but that's a lot. In 1901, we're talking over $1 million in today's money. So they were very comfortable, and the family were, they were affluent. So they could afford to send them to boarding school in Dublin. They're a very nice convent boarding school. And Mary was the last one of the children. She was the youngest. She was 18 years old at the time. She was the last one still in boarding school. That was coming to an end. This was pretty much her last. In 1912, it would have been her last 6 months there. But she was home over Christmas and that time of the year, and she took a shine to Dennis Lennon, who was working as a barman for them, and they very quickly fell in love. So 18 and 20 years old, madly in love. And as Kim Mizell famously said, young hearts run free. It became clear very early on that the family did not approve, that as far as they saw it, Mary was fraternising with the help, if you will, that Dennis had no future. He had no aspiration. The boy wasn't good enough. They saw Mary as being, formally educated, and that she had money, inevitably. She would have come from wealth, and that Dennis was no good for her. Dennis had no prospects. And they forbid it. You will not be together. Like anything, the fastest way to tell the young that you can't have to do something is to tell them they can't. Turn it into forbidden fruit, and that's exactly what happened. So Dennis and Mary's love became very much forbidden. You are not to see each other, which makes it all the more desirable, doesn't it? So contrary to what they thought, Dennis wasn't interested in her money. He couldn't care less. And he wanted Mary. That's all it was. He loved her. And it had nothing to do with money. So they decided that if they couldn't be together in Galway, they were going to run away, and they were going to start a new life. And at that time, the place where you started a new life was America. So it was the land of opportunity. You could get on a boat, you could go over there, you could get immigration status, and that's what they decided they were going to do. So they booked themselves 2 tickets on the Cymric, and the Cymric was going to take them to America. However, there was a coal strike, which we've not talked about the coal strike. We will at some point. The coal strike was happening at the time, and all of the coal of the Cymric, which was a smaller vessel, was taken and given to Titanic. And as a result, Dennis and Mary's tickets were transferred to Titanic. So they were now travelling on Titanic, which I'm sure when they heard was probably quite the excitement. It's quite the upgrade. You're sailing on, the biggest ship in the world, the ship of dreams. So they made their plan, and their plan was that they were going to run away. So Mary was due to go back to Dublin, to the convent, and she had to board a train to do it. And she was taken there by her sister, who put her on the train, waved goodbye, and off she went. When she got home, she mentioned something. Did Mary get on the train okay? Yeah, Mary got on the train okay. She said, there was something strange, though. And I said, why? She said, I could see Dennis. And he said, what? I said, I saw Dennis. Dennis was lingering around outside the front of the train station. Because what Mary had done is got on the train, walked a few carriages down, and got off. So she went in, walked a few carriages up, got off at the other end, and left with Dennis. They then boarded a train, and they were on their way out. So word gets back to the family of what's happened. They're not happy. So in true Hollywood style, the brothers have decided this ain't happening. So they then board a train to try and apprehend Mary and Dennis. And they're armed. They've got loaded handguns. They are going to, they're going to stop this from happening. But they weren't quick enough, because by the time they got to where they got to, Mary and Dennis had boarded this. So Mary and Dennis had arrived in Cork, which is near Queenstown, where they were going to be boarding the tender, the America, that was going to ferry them out to the Titanic. By this point, word has come in from the school that Mary hasn't turned up, and their suspicions were confirmed. So there is then this mad dash to stop them, but they were too late because they were already on the America, taking them out to the Titanic. When Mary and Dennis boarded the Titanic, they lied about their age, they lied about their names. They pretended they were brother and sister. So they both travelled under the name Mullin. So it's Mary Mullin and Dennis Mullin, were how they were listed on the manifest. They were third-class passengers, which meant they were not cohabitants. They were not in a room together. So the men were in the bow of the ship and the women were in the stern of the ship. However, because they'd said they were brother and sister, they also lied about their age. They said they were 22 and 20. They weren't. They were 18 and 20. So they 21 and 23 they said they were, but they weren't. They were 18 and 20. But because they'd said they were brother and sister, it meant that they had access. It meant they could dine together because they were family. So Mary and Dennis would have been able to eat together. They would have been able to dine together. They also would have been able... There was a family lounge where families could cohabit. Well, they could fraternize. So they were able to spend all of their time together. They weren't completely separated. And what a lovely thing. So for the few days they were on Titanic, it was the only time that they could be completely open and free and walk around together and spend time together. And I'm sure they discussed exactly what their plans were, what their aspirations were, what their hopes and dreams were. And they got to be a young couple for those few days they were on board the Titanic. And that's nice, right? So they were able to spend time together, and it's been reported they were seen in the communal area of third class where there was music and dancing was quite common. They were seen there together, and they were said to be very much in love. And the only people that knew that thought they were brother and sister were kind of staff of the ship, and everyone else knew very early doors. Okay. And it's a romantic story, it's a sweet story, and I think a lot of people sort of swooned for them, and it's beautiful. But that's where the beauty ends, because when Titanic hit the iceberg, we don't really know what happened to Dennis and Mary. The last reported sighting of them was that they were at the lifeboats, with Mary choosing to stay with Dennis. Dennis is a third-class passenger. His chances of getting on a lifeboat slim to none as a third-class male. And Mary stayed by his side. They were never found. So if their bodies were recovered, they weren't identified. Mary's brother Joe travelled to New York to try to identify Mary's body. None of the bodies that he saw were Mary's, but he also, and I think this is testament to him as well, seeing as he was, loaded handgun at one point, whilst he was there, he did also try to identify Dennis, which is a decent thing to do. I mean, the rage inside the man, I'm sure a lot of the blame for Mary's demise was placed firmly on Dennis, which isn't true, but to overcome that and be like, you know what, this is the right thing to do. I can at least report back to his family he's alive or passed. He did try, which I think is decent. It's testament to the family. I understand protective brothers, and particularly with the father gone, then they would have been, they would have been the men of the house. I understand. But sadly, it would appear Dennis and Mary were never identified and were lost to the depths.
but they were together. They were together. And I think, as tragic as that story is, they ultimately got what they wanted. They got to be together. And it's just sad they didn't make it to America. They didn't get to live out their lives together. But they were together till the end. And their love was able to flourish in those few days. And I'm sure those 3 days they were on board were magical. I'm sure they were, because it was the first time they could openly walk hand in hand, be together, spend their time together, and I'm sure all the conversation was about hopes and dreams and their new love that was going to be. But that is the story of Mary and Dennis, and may they rest in peace. Now, where's their movie? Because I'd watch the hell out of that. I mean, why do we need Dennis and why do we need Rose and Jack? We don't. I would have watched that movie. I'd watch that movie all day long. Turn that into a miniseries. I'd watch that. There wouldn't be a dry eye in the house. Beautiful, beautiful story, but tragically terrible story at the same time. Why create characters? You don't need to. Titanic is full of amazing characters. Why create them for movies? It's just bizarre. That is all for this one. We will be back very, very soon with issue 74, I want to say. But until then, in a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. If you'd like to contact us, you can at billwiththeboys@outlook.com. Thank you for stopping by, and we will see you very, very soon for more Titanic. I'll see you then.